Good morning, Morai Verabotai, Bruchim, Habayim. We're continuing on Masechet Succah. We are on Daf Kafchet, Amud Aleph. We got up to the Mishnah. We went quickly through the last piece of the Agadic Gemaras about Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, which we're going to quickly review the last few lines. Today's Amud is being learned as a schut for Refuah Shelema of Michael ben Nahid, one of our own chevra, should have full recovery, Refuah Shelema Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. Also has been dedicated for Refuah Shelema of Rachel Simcha bat Nahid, that should have full recovery. And the learnings of the month has been graciously dedicated by the Shea family, Dayan family, and Cohen family. It should be an ultimate schut for all their mishpachot, Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. Amen. Okay, so the last piece of the Gemara spoke about the 80 students that Hillel HaZaken had. 30 of them were like Moshe Rabbeinu, and 30 of them were fit like Yehoshua, that had miracles like Penei Moshe Penei Chama, Penei Yehoshua Penei Levala. Moshe Rabbeinu and Yehoshua are compared to sun and the moon in their great levels. But even with Yehoshua, he had a tremendous miracle of holding up the sun. The day was extended for him in the battle that he had for the Givonim with the rest of Malchei HaEmori. Shemesh Begivon Dom, he basically commanded the sun to stop in his tracks to allow the army to finish the job. And this is the level of 60 of the students, and the 20 were in the middle. We're not as great as Moshe Rabbeinu, but also were greater, so to speak, than Yehoshua. To which Maran Chida writes, says, how in the world can you have someone in the Madriga of Moshe Rabbeinu? We have one of the 13 principles of our emunah is that nobody lo kam Navi beYisrael od ke Moshe. There's nobody like Moshe. No one is going to ever be like Moshe. Even when Rambam speaks about Mashiach at the end of Ilchot Melachim, he says, and the Madriga of Nevuah of Mashiach is going to be karov lemadrigato shel Moshe. It's going to be close to Moshe. It's not going to be like Moshe. Even Mashiach is not going to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. So how in the world, says Maran Chida, are you going to suggest that 30 of the students of Hillel were like Moshe Rabbeinu? He doesn't necessarily answer. He does suggest that perhaps it's going to be, the Maran Chida himself brings this, he rejects it, doesn't like it. Says there are those who say the combination of the levels of these 30 was like Moshe Rabbeinu. Maran Chida does not really like that. But nevertheless, the simple understanding that the Ra'ah, so the Rishonim bring, is that we're not suggesting that the Madriga of Nevuah was like Moshe Rabbeinu. There are two different things. One is the level of your Nevuah. The other thing is the purity and the level of accomplishing their tremendous potential was that of Moshe Rabbeinu. Like Rambam writes in Chot Shuvah in Perek Bet, that every person could have the Madriga of Moshe Rabbeinu by actualizing the level that they have. Now here is a higher thing than just the Rambam. It's not that they were just able to actualize 100% of their potential, which is a tremendous thing by itself, but here they're also fit in the Madriga of their Kedusha, that there should be a platform for Shekhinah. We're not talking about the level of Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevuah, but we're talking about being a platform for the Shekhinah to rest upon them. Be that as it may, these are tremendous things that we say, and we mentioned that this really comes from the Rebbe Hillel, who was such a humble individual, and the Gemara in Sanhedrin speaks about him. The Gemara says that there was a bat kol when they were in Yericho, the Aliyah of a house. A bat kol was, there is somebody here that he's fit for the Shekhinah to rest upon him, like Moshe Rabbeinu, and everyone all of a sudden naturally just looked at Hillel, even though Hillel was the humblest of all of the Chachamim in that thing, but perhaps because of the same reason, the Torah, Chazal tell us, is Nimshala Lemayim. Torah is like water. When you pour water in a surface, in an area, where does it go? It goes to the lowest place. And the Torah is the same way. That's why the Torah was given on Har Sinai, which was the lowest of the mountains. And the nature of it really works that when you empty yourself from yourself, there's more room for Shekhinah, like the Midrash says in Kohelet Rabbah, that Torah is like shemen. If you have shemen in a cup, every drop of water that you put in, a drop of shemen leaves the cup. So this is when you want to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your cup, so to speak. The more every drop of yourself that you enter in, a drop of the shemen leaves. There's not room for 100% of both. Then Moshe Rabbeinu was a vessel, a kli that was completely empty of himself, and therefore perhaps he was the greatest of Nevi'im. And the same thing is with Hillel. Hillel was the humblest of the Chachamim, and therefore he was a person that was Ra'ui for Hashra'at HaShekhinah. Now, that continuing in our track, the Gemara says, the smallest of them was, the least significant was Yochanan ben Zakkai. The greatest of them was Yonatan ben Uziel. Now, on the smallest one, by the way, there's a midrash that says one time the Talmidim of Hillel came in, and he asked, he said, are all my Talmidim here to start the shiur? He said, yeah, everyone is here, besides from the least significant one. You can start this shiur. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was not there in that event, and must not have been the Bet Midrash, because no one was before him in Bet Midrash, obviously. But according to this Midrashic work, Hillel tells them, he says, no, we're going to wait because he's going to be the Nasi in future. So it's not, Yonatan ben Uziel, the greatest man, was not necessarily the greatest teacher and the leader. It's the qualities that the teacher need are tremendous, and you see the qualities that the Gemara already mentioned about him. They would open the door for his students, the humility and the love and the care for the students. He was always there before them even, and never left before them from the Bet Midrash. A tremendous level of care, concern, commitment, and consistency that he showed as a leader, as a Rebbe, which, again, together coupled with this story, makes it so much more meaningful that he, being the least significant, was kind of the successor of Hillel in that way. Now, says the Gemara, other things that he knew, this is the least significant one of all the Talmidim, says the Gemara, Amru alav al Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, this is about 7 lines up from the Mishnah, Shelo iniach mikra Mishnah Gemara, that there was not a pasuk. If you had like a Tanakh championship, they have this thing nowadays that you have to compete in knowledge of that. All Tanakh, all of the Mishnayot, and all the Gemara. How does the Gemara make sense, by the way? Chaim Zakkai is one of the Tanaim. There's no Gemara before, right? What does that mean? It's just Mishnah. It means the Perush, this is a later generation of Tanaim. It means the Perush of the Mishnayot that was discussed by the earlier Tanaim, that was considered Gemara in the time of even the Tanaim themselves. This discussion and the back and forth between the words, explanation of the words of the earlier Tanaim was considered Gemara, right? Now, parenthetically, this is important. Rambam in Chot HaMutarah learns that Gemara, the word Gemara, does not refer to Shas Bavli. The word Gemara means the way that it takes you to get halacha, process that you have to go through to get to bottom line halacha from the sources. That is Gemara. The discussion, the svarot. So electricity is not mentioned in the Gemara. But if you are discussing how status of electricity is in halacha, that process is Gemara. That svara, that logic, the core halacha after that you arrive at would be considered Mishnah. Right? So the Mishnah is very much expanded, and the process of Gemara is an unending process of logic and svara and back and forth. That is Gemara. So that Rambam very much is aligned with this piece of the Gemara, that Gemara just means the process of discussion that leads to a maskana of halacha. So it says Gemara, halacha, halachot v'agadot. He knew all the halachot, he knew all the agadot. Diktuke Torah, diktuke sofrim, the psukim, the extra words, the krikatives, in the psukim, all of that. Kalim v'chamurim, all the logics of Torah. Kal v'chomer, gezerat shavot, which means kal v'chomer is something that you could do yourself. So he knew all of those things, which is tremendous. On his own, he had all of these capacities, and Gezerah Shavah is something that you need from your Rebbe. You need a Mesorah. So he had complete Mesorah, and he had a complete sophisticated mind of his own. Tkufot, Gematriyaot, all the astrology, astronomy, calendar-related, complicated things. Sichat Malachei Hasharet, Sichat Shedim, Sichat Dekalim, the speech of Malachei Hasharet and Shedim, and even palm trees. So Rashi throws his hands over here. If you take a look at Rashi, Rashi says, I have no idea what these things are. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai knew things that Rashi doesn't even know what they were, right? But the truth is, Rashbam, this Gemara is copied basically in Masechet Ba'Batra also, in Daf Kuf Lamed Daled. Rashbam over there says, Sichat Shedim and Sichat Malachei Hasharet are ways of controlling the Shedim and Malachim. Right, we find in Masechet Gittin that Shlomo Melech, needed something from the head of all the Shedim, and he had to catch him, and there was a whole process, a whole magnificent story there. But this means that you have the knowledge of the names and the process of how Malachei Hasharet and Shedim operate, that you could force and create a way to get what you want from Malachim and from Shedim. And Rashba really writes in the name of Rabbi Gaon that Sichat Dekalim, because that's very difficult. Sichat Dekalim, what does that mean? So the simple understanding would be that just like Shlomo Melech, when he was gifted the greatest mind of all humans ever, which is discussed in Sefer Melachim, something very kedai to actually read for yourselves, in Melachim Aleph Perek Hey, there it speaks about the 12-year-old Shlomo that had to succeed his father when David HaMelech passed, and he became the premature kingship that was handed over to him, and he's on the way to go bring korbanot, and he has this famous dream of Shlomo Melech, and Hashem asks him, he says, what do you want? I'll give it to you. And he doesn't ask for defeat of his enemies, he doesn't ask for power and riches and all that. He says, look, I've been handed the responsibility of a tremendous nation. Your nation is a tremendous nation. I want, give me a heart that understands, and a mind that could cope with all the heavy load of your nation. I want to do justice to this office. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, because you didn't ask for your selfish needs, I'll give you the greatest chokhmah, but I'll also give you power and your enemies in your hand and wisdom. Everything that you didn't ask also, I will give you a tremendous thing. And he says, after that point, he spoke on the kalim, on vegetations and on trees. What does that mean exactly? The simple understanding is, it means he knew what's good for everything. He said, okay, if you have the COVID-19, what's the thing? He said, oh boy, this and that. Well, you'll be good, right? If you have pancreatic cancer, you eat this and this, you'll be good to go. All the things, the Sefer Refuot of Shlomo Melech. So that's one of the things that will be simple understanding. Rashba writes in the name of Rabbi Gaon that this also means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu relays messages to the world based on things that happen in the world. The movement of they say in Maharchur, Chaim Vital writes about the Ari HaKadosh, that he could go to a house and look at the flame of a candle that was lit in that house and tell you what's going to happen with the people in that house. Which means it's not hocus pocus or witchcraft. It's the energy and the synergy of the things that happen in the world are all reflected in the Bria itself. So Rabbi Hai Gaon, with the movement of the trees, you could tell what they are saying, the message that they're saying. When it says a speech of the Kalim, it doesn't mean that Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai would walk up to a tree and knock on it and say, how are you doing today? It means that he understood the reflection of the messages, in the deepest sense, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu communicated with the Bria through the trees. So that's, again, these are high levels. Meshalot Kofsi, Meshalot Shu'alim. This again, the Gemara talks about in the time of Chazal. They relayed a lot of messages through parables, through examples, Meshalim, and the two things that they used was Kofsim and Shu'alim. He knew all of them. All of these, this, again, Mishlei Shlomo HaMelech wrote one of the most complex svarim that he had through Meshalim. It's all Mishlei Shlomo, it's parables, right? So the Meshalim of Chazal, which contains deep chokhmah, he knew them all. So basically, you're saying Gemara, Halacha, Kabbalah, you name it, he had it. This is the least significant of them all. This is Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Davar Katan, Davar Gadol. What's Davar Gadol? Maaseh Merkava. Again, Maaseh Merkava, we spoke about this in the beginning of Masechet Chagigah, right? It was the highest secrets of the Kabbalah, the world. And Davar Katan is Havayot Abaye V'Rava. Why do we call this, by the way, Havayot Abaye V'Rava? The questions, the quandaries of Abaye V'Rava. Why not Rabba and Rabbi Yosef? Why Abaye V'Rava? First of all, there's some Mefarshim from here that they say whenever it says Ibaya Lehu, right? Whenever it's in the Gemara says they had a question and doesn't say who, it's Abaye V'Rava. Right? Every page of the Gemara, Abaye V'Rava are there. But the real reason for this, as the Mefarshim explain, is because there was a shift. These are again Shas knowledge that's important for everyone around the tables here to know, that there was a switch in the generation of Abaye V'Rava. Up until Abaye V'Rava, they dealt with the chokhmah of the Rebbe. Each person dealt with their Rebbe's Mesorah. By the time of Abaye V'Rava, they started discussing everyone's Torah and asking and answering and questioning every shita, bringing everything that everyone had, pouring it on the table, discussing it, and it became a completely different mahalach. Therefore, by the way, is one of the outcomes of this is, up until the generation of Abaye V'Rava, halacha is always like the previous generation. The older you are, the greater. But Abaye V'Rava and on, halacha kebatra. Halacha would be like the later generation, right? Why is halacha like Bavli, not like Yerushalmi? We go when there is a discrepancy between Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi, halacha is like Bavli. Even though that the author of Talmud Yerushalmi was bigger. The author of Talmud Yerushalmi is Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha is always like Rabbi Yochanan. Even if you have Rav and Shmuel combined arguing with Rabbi Yochanan, still halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan. Right? So why is halacha not like Yerushalmi? Because the Bavli was authored a good 100 years after Yerushalmi, and they saw the Bavli. They dealt with it. They discussed it. They analyzed it. And halacha is kebatra. When all the chachamim paid attention to something and they codified something, the halacha would be like that. That started from the door of Abaye V'Rava. Again, these are a little tidbits that you see in the Gemara. It's there. The Gemara knew what he was saying when he said Havayot Abaye V'Rava. Why not other people? Well, Abaye V'Rava were the sharpest people. No, it's referring to all of these things combined, that even though the Abaye V'Rava, when they brought all of the shitot in all of Klal Yisrael and they put it on the table and all these questions erupted, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai was a person that in his mind, when he was contemplating a sugya, he had all of these questions and answers worked out already in everything that he said. This is a tremendous thing that the Gemara is saying about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. But nevertheless, all of this is the Kayem Hashanema, to establish what the Pasuk says, Lehanchil ohava yesh ve'osrotehem amalek. This is, by the way, the last piece of Mishnayot in Shas in Masechet Uktzin. that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Latid Lavo will give worlds, Shai Olamot, 310 Olamot to every tzaddik v'tzaddik. La'anchil Ra'ava, yesh is Shin Yud, right? So I have plenty to give to those who love me, and this was established, this was Mekuyam in Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, someone that was so full from every aspect of knowledge and Chokhmah, not just Chokhmah Torah, but every in intellectual capacity that you could ever think of, he had in him. And then the Gemara throws his hand and says, wait a second, this was the least significant? If this was the least significant, what was Yonatan ben Uziel like? And Gemara says, I'll tell you one thing about Yonatan ben Uziel. They said on him, when he was sitting and learning Torah, even a bird that would fly on him would be miyad nisraf, a bird, which, by the way, this, whether or not the Meiri, for instance, talking about this, saying that we're not talking about actual barbecue, shish kebab over here, but the message of this is that there was so much kedusha there. And he said, the Ritba, by the way, says, Hillel himself, says Hillel, so Yonatan Moshe only was within 4 amot, within his direct domain. Says Hillel was the entire area around him. That was Miyat Nisraf. But again, the Meiri says, we're not talking about barbecuing here. We're talking about the Kedusha that he had. By the way, Tosafot says something amazing. For those who have been with us for a few Masechtas, you remember we discussed this in Masechet Chagigat of Tetvav, where there was the Brit Milah of Elisha ben Avuya, right? And who was the host? Avuya. Avuya was a tremendously powerful and politically influential individual with the Romans, and all the Chachamim were there as well. So Rabbi Eliezer was there, right, of our daf. Rabbi Yoshua was there. And Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer said, it was Persian times, so people were wasting some time. They said, no, they're doing their thing, we'll do our thing. And they sat and learned. And there was a ball of fire around them, right? And, Abuya runs and says, you came to burn my house, right? He said, no, we were learning Torah. I was so impressed. He said, I want my son, this son of mine, to be a Lomed Torah. I want to dedicate his life to learning, and so on and so forth. But again, this comes from there. The Tosafot here actually mentions that the words were happy. Kenetinatan Har Sinai. The authentic Torah, like it was given on Har Sinai, authentic Torah was given by fire, right? The fire was on top of Har Sinai when the Torah was given. Like, Halot Dvari Ka'esh. Ne'um Hashem uchapatish yefoses sela. The pasuk compares the Torah with fire. It says, my words, Hashem says, my word is like fire. And we also says, mimino esh dat lamo, in the pasuk in the end of Chumash, that Hashem gave from his right hand, he gave fire to them. Esh dat. The Torah is fire. Again, the Ramban in the beginning of Bereshit, in his Haktamah, writes that Kabbalistically speaking, the Torah before the creation of the world was there, whatever that means, but there is this element of fire, and they were so pure, the Torah was so pure, the Torah of Yonatan ben Uziel was so pure, that was like the moment that it was given from Har Sinai, untouched, holy, powerful, and the language of the Gemara there is happy. Torah has to be learned with joy, with happiness, with geschmack. So that is another level over here of Yonatan ben Uziel. We also mentioned quickly in the last shiur that the Kotzker Rebbe, the Rabbi Nachman ben Mikotsk, he said very beautifully, the Kotzker Rebbe was very known for his leadership of tremendous level of learning Torah, unlike the general movement of Hasidut, which did not focus as much on Torah as they did on Avodah and Tefillah, but he was very much think that his Hasidim should know and should learn, but he also was a big proponent that a person should keep the fire of their Avodat Hashem very much inwardly. So he said when you daven, they daven not long, Shemona Esrei was short, but he said inside of you, instead of like moving the body, it should stand straight, but inside has to be a storm, a fire of love and passion for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So very much aligned with that, he said, Hillel did not have any fire. Rabbi Uziel had it like that, but Hillel, if you would see him, he was the most normal person because all the fire was inward. He had the great capacity of keeping that inside, which would be very much aligned with the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Lamed Gimel. The Gemara there says that when Rabbi Shlomo Yisraeli had to run away for his life to go to the Me'ara, after 12 years of learning with Eliyahu Hanavi, he came out, and him and his son were so upset seeing people working. He said, "You work? You're living you're living the eternal life, and you're doing something finite." And the frustration that they had caused fires everywhere. They were burning. Bat Kol Kabza said, I sent you lachrivet olami. I sent you to destroy my work. Go back to your Ma'ara. And after a year, the 13th year that they were in the Ma'ara, when they came out, Rabbi Eliezer, the son, he was younger, he still was on fire. But Rabbi Shlomo Yisraeli already was contained. So you see from there, he doesn't bring this, the Menachem in the Mikotsk, but you see that from the Gemara that even a greater level to be able to contain your fire, not to lash out with that, but nevertheless we do what we do, and we go on with the next Mishnah, which is going to have 3 topics of whether or not a person that is sitting partially in the sukkah is doing the right thing. Imagine if I'm sitting, my entire body is in the sukkah, but my table is in the house, or in the sukkah under the awning, which would be pasul, right? Is that okay? What's the din of women and what's the din of children? These are the 3 topics of this Mishnah. So without further ado, let's quickly start our Mishnah. If you were sitting in the sukkah but your shulchan is in the bayit, Bet Shammai says poslin, right? Bet Hillel machshirin. Bet Hillel says fine. Bet Shammai says not fine. Amru lahem Bet Hillel le Bet Shammai. Bet Hillel says to Bet Shammai, lo kach haya maaseh. Don't you remember there was a maaseh? It's a story. Shalchu ziknei Bet Shammai v'ziknei Bet Hillel on Chol HaMoed Sukkot. All of the Gedolim went to visit Rabbi Yochanan ben Achoranit, and he was sitting there. They found him sitting and eating in his sukkah, and he was sitting in the sukkah, but his table was in the house, right? Shulchano b'toch habayit. V'lo amru lo davar. They sat, they learned, they talked in learning, and they, that was it. They didn't say a thing to him. So says Gemara, Bet Shammai tells him, says Misham Raya, that's the Raya. We disagree with what happened in you have the story wrong. Afhem amru lo. They told him, Im ken hayita nog, if this is what you have been doing, lo kiyamta mitzvat sukkah miyamecha. You have never done mitzvat sukkah. This was very, very questionable because this is really a gezerah midrabanan. You're sitting there, maybe you're going to be nimshach, maybe you're going to be drawn after your table. So you never did sukkah. So the Mefarshim debate whether the gezerah midrabanan made it that it's as if you're sitting outside sukkah. Are you never done mitzvah sukkah? Or maybe it means you didn't properly establish, you didn't properly do mitzvah sukkah all of your life. But be that as it may, Mr. Abraham here told me a pshat in this from his Rebbe that a beautiful pshat. It says it's not that they were arguing. It's not that they were arguing. They said, you don't realize, after Bet Hillel left, Bet Shammai were respectful to Bet Hillel because halakha is like Bet Hillel. So they didn't want to disagree with them in front of them. They waited for Bet Hillel very respectfully for Bet Hillel to leave, and only afterwards they told to Rabbi Yochanan ben Achoranit, they said, look, this is not the right way of doing it. They didn't want to bring that up in front of Bet Hillel, knowing that Bet Hillel argues with their point of view, and that's the love and respect that existed, like the Gemara explains in Masechet Yevamot Daf Yud Gimel, that even though that they had the greatest level of machloket sometimes, you're talking, the Gemara in Yevamot there is talking about Sarat Erva, which is a Isur Karet, and they were, as the Gemara says, they still married into each other, they respected each other, they told each other, oh, this is not like your shita, be careful with this, be careful with that, and the respect and the love that was Ahava Adadit, a mutual love and respect was a tremendous thing, and this would be aligned with that, and that's why there was a discrepancy in the story. But he said, well, they didn't say anything. They say, yeah, they did it in front of you guys. When you left, then that's when they told him that, if you did like this, that is not an establishment, a proper establishment of a Ilchot Sukkah. Let's finish the Mishnah. Nashim va'avadim v'ktanim p'turim min sukkah. Women, children, and slaves, avadim, are patur from the sukkah. And katan she'eno sarich leimo, a child, a minor that no longer needs his mother, which Gemara is going to discuss the age for that, is chayav besukkah, right? So you say ktanim ar patur, but then you say a katan that doesn't need the mother is chayav. In Sukkah Maaseh v'yalda karato shel Shammai, this story is very counterintuitive because it seems to completely go against what we just said, because the grandson of Shammai himself was born as an infant, a little baby, and what did Shammai do? This is like really off the, over the top, like pun intended, really, like he went over the top, all right, and he peeled off the ceiling to expose the beams, and he dropped a schach there to make sukkah for the baby that was in the house nursing, in order for the baby boy, the infant baby boy, to have sukkah, to live in the sukkah. He peeled off the ceiling with and he made that area over the bed of this baby to have schach b'shvil katan. So we have to really understand where does that chiyuv come from of Shammai Hazaken, and that the fact that it seems to contradict the Mishnah that we had right prior, and B'ezrat Hashem, all of that we'll discuss in the shiur tomorrow. Chazak Baruch.